Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thought I'd do a quick reaction or revisiting video before I go to watch Interpol tonight in Manchester. Just an indie flex there. But it did cost me 50 quid, so not much of a flex. The mate who I was supposed to be going with as well sold his ticket on Twickets to a fella called Graham as well, so should be interesting. Hopefully Graham's up for it. Not like that, but just up for watching it and stuff. But yeah, obviously the Libertines, plenty of videos to watch from back in the day. But I guess it's known which ones are going to be copyrighted or not. So I'm not sure I can do the Gonzo ones. So let's do the London Calling one from around 2002, I think. See, a London Calling, I'm pretty sure this is a festival in Amsterdam. I'm sure others can correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, I remember watching this video. I think I downloaded it from LimeWire or something. This kind of feature. So yeah, let's have a watch. Again, not great quality, is it? But mustn't grumble. One thing about Doherty that's always stood out is like how many image changes he's had. Like, he barely looks the same from one gig to the next, does he, when you look back? So it's quite easy to pinpoint time. Whereas with Carl, he's a bit more consistent, so it's harder to pinpoint, really. It could be from any of the early period usually. But anyway, let's crack on. I mean, I wonder if people consider this the Libertines' peak. I mean, I guess it's when the band was seemingly getting on and around the time they released that first album. But yeah, let me know in the comments if you think this is the peak, or personally, I prefer more of like the angsty gigs like the 2004 Brixton Academy stuff. I think if I could go back and watch one of their gigs, it would be one of them, personally. Going back to look at Pete's guitar, can't tell which pixel it is or not, but it's this Epiphone, isn't it, that I think he called Heavy Horse. It's just quite impressive. I think he's still got it. I think in his book he said his dad took it at one point to make sure it was safe. Took it back abroad or something, so maybe that's why. But yeah, and now Carl, I don't know if Carl's using his signature guitar on this, but his, I want to say Les Paul, could be wrong. But I think that's also survived. Maybe that could be a video. Indie guitars, Albert Hammond's obviously in there. But yeah, not sure who else.
We've been writing songs together
6 years. Nigh on 6 years now.
You guys meet?
We first met, we didn't really meet. Like, I'd seen him because I
Yeah.
was like a little boy in the crowd in a pub in Liverpool, and he was playing guitar with a really awful band called the Roosters. Right? We both had like songs.
I think that's one of Pete's little stories that he liked to tell that weren't particularly based on truth. But I always found that funny, that idea that he just wanted to create a story. About Carl being in a band called the Roosters, which, yeah, I don't believe is true.
I wasn't a particularly good guitarist, but I knew a few chords and I had ideas for songs, and they seemed to fit together with like the half ideas he'd had. So even though we didn't particularly like each other,
It was like two one-legged men having to
two one-legged men who
strap themselves to each other.
split down the middle.
so those can stand up. And after a while, learn to walk.
We didn't really have an idea of
What was it,
sound or even a band, really. We just always believed in quite an old-fashioned way in songs. Complete faith. It's what we lived inside. The only thing we had, really. We didn't have religion, and I don't know, we had love affairs and whatever, and drugs, but nothing that really kept.
I remember as like a young kid watching this, I always found that comment about drugs mad. They didn't have music at that time, but they had drugs to bring them together. I kind of get it more now I'm older. Kind of gave an insight into Doherty's mind at that point.
Captured you completely, and songs did that. I'd always lived inside songs, right? And so had he. And then we created our own ones, and that was that. And that was
What
everything.
songs did you live in? Which songs?
Any songs that you find yourself singing for even a snatch of a second a day, you know?
Yeah.
I think when I was about 13, I got stuck in Venus in Furs for about 2 weeks. Got awfully cramped in there.
I got stuck in Rent by Pet Shop Boys because my friend's dad used to play it in a car. You took me to a restaurant on Broadway, bought me caviar. Look at my hole. Yeah.
That song actually came on at a football game I was at the other day. Made me laugh. I didn't know the song before Pete mentioned it, then that kind of his version stuck in my head. Then when you hear the original, it's quite funny to make that link. But yeah, it's a really good song, to be fair. Pet Shop Boys are pretty great.
I suppose in the back of our minds, we thought one day we might get a record deal or have our own instruments and stuff. And then when we seen the Strokes, it was almost like proof that you can still... They seem to be authentic, the music seems to be genuine and like strong songs. So they were like an example, like you can still do it, and they look like they were mates and they're enjoying it, and it was just cool, you know? It was seemed natural. So it's proof that you can still do it, you can still get away with it. You know, you just stick together, keep going. So it was, in a way, it was not influential, maybe on the way it happened for other people and why they chose to like us even, you know? But more inspirational than influential, I think, yeah. Like when the Strokes first came along, our manager, like, she was supposed to be our manager, but we hadn't seen her for 6 months. And all of a sudden, Strokes came along, and she brightened up pretty sharpish.
Yeah, she did.
Because she thought, oh, I know some boys who dress a
She
bit
smelt
like
with you,
that.
Bob, I reckon.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah, in terms of inspiration, then,
You know,
yeah.
you didn't even like them.
No, that's 'cause
I
I
was
thought-
saying, oh, there's this wicked band, you got to hear them, and they heard it, and he went, that's rubbish.
Yeah, no, because it sounded like badly recorded Velvet Underground, and that's saying something. Velvet Underground, worst recorded band in history.
It's interesting in Pete's book, he talks about when the Strokes first came around or they released the singles, and like it'd only be a few of them dancing around to Hard to Explain in some of the clubs in East London, I think. So quite an interesting insight that he latched onto it, and by all accounts, he kind of, like Ian Fairs there, I think he kind of modelled the band a bit on the Strokes in terms of the fashion and everything, and certainly fast-tracked them to where they wanted to be, I think. To be fair, I might take back my comments saying maybe 2004 was the best time to see him. I think seeing him at this point where, you know, they are really good mates and everything's kind of working as they want them to. I mean, maybe behind the scenes at this point, things are starting to fracture a little bit. I don't know, but yeah, maybe this might be the best period to go back to watch him, I think, maybe.
When I'm dreaming of you, what can I do? I don't want you. What do you say?
This song is fun.
Coral.
The coral? Great.
I wrote that song, I sold it to
When I'm stealing from you.
Yeah, that's what the drummer says, yeah. But how did that happen?
Well, Pete
not allowed
makes
to
something
do it.
up, and then he says it's an interview.
No, it's just
That easy.
sometimes you hear a song and you think, oh shit.
Yeah.
You know, you just recognise the melody.
Do you see more similarities with the choral than with the White Stripes, for instance?
I don't.
I don't see more similarities with the Cold and the White Stripes, no. I'd say like...
Don't know why that makes me laugh. He's like defiance there, like it's a really serious comparison or something.
The Cold and the White Stripes, no.
No, I don't think that's what you're saying, mate.
I'd say like... we're equally as different from the Cold as we are from the White Stripes. Completely different songs, completely different style to the Coral and to the White Stripes in a way. Maybe we've got more of a similar guitar sound to the White Stripes, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's like comparing an oak tree to a buffalo or something.
But suddenly you have all those bands and they're all part of which is
If you can read any of those bands, let me know. Von Bondi's there. Black Rebel Motorcycle Club. I mean, this is quite heavily talked about compilation CD on the podcast, the New York Revolution. But yeah, it's interesting what Doherty's saying there. He's clearly got such a clear idea of how the band sounds and how he wants them to sound and how they kind of like compare to that landscape. He's quite defiant that they're not similar to anyone else, which is probably a fair comment. Could argue like the style and the fashion is based on the Strokes, but the music's pretty different in it. Unless you disagree, hit those comments.
Yeah, but one man somewhere has sat down and
Yeah.
written, you know, the new rock and roll revolution. What?
Buffalo.
No.
which is nonsense.
Maybe it is, I don't know, I'm not bothered about it.
But it helped you.
Well,
Yeah, that's
maybe
the deal.
it did.
The deal
Maybe
is,
it didn't.
look, if you want
Maybe
to-
it was the kiss of death.
I think that's it in terms of the interview. But yeah, what do you make of it? Do you think 2002 was the peak time to see the Libertines? Do you think those comparison of bands didn't really work, as Pete pointed out? It is pretty nice to revisit this point where, like I mentioned before, they're all getting on quite well, or appear to be. And especially with Carl, like in later interviews, you could tell he was a bit jaded by all the antics, you could say. Speaking of antics, I'm off to Winterpol. Let me know what you think in the comments. Smooth.